meeting of the Starkville Board of Alderman will now come to order. Please rise for the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance, after which Alderman Maynard would like to open us in a word of prayer, and we will observe a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Lord, we come to you in this time of sorrow asking for your comfort for our colleague, Alderman Henry Vaughn, and his family. Lord, you willingly gave yourself up for death so that people might be saved and pass from death into a new life. Listen to our prayers, Lord. Look with love on your people who mourn and pray for this family in their time of need. Please comfort them and lift them up. Lord, at this moment, we know nothing seems to help in the loss they must feel. We all know that your grace is sufficient. We know that Matthew tells us, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Tonight, Lord, we hold firm in that promise for Alderman Vaughn and for his family. Please be with them. Amen.
Amen.
All right, you have before you a copy of the written agenda. Are there any proposed changes to the agenda as written? Any proposed? Alderman Little.
Under 11B, 2G, I'd like to remove that. Being a resident of Country Club Estates and a member of the Homeowners Association, I think to avoid any potential conflicts, or I'd like to have that taken off or recuse myself on this time.
All right. Item 11.2G, request for approval of a 5-lot Country Club Estates Phase 3 subdivision plat with conditions has been removed from the consent agenda. Alderman Little, do you have further proposed revisions?
No, sir.
Any further proposed revisions from the board? Any further proposed revisions to the agenda? Are there any further proposed revisions? Any further proposed revisions? Seeing none, a motion to approve the agenda as revised is in order.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Little to approve the agenda as revised. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Little, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. You now have before you the consent agenda. Is there any objection to the approval of the consent agenda as revised? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, the consent agenda as revised has been approved. We'll now move to announcements by the mayor and the members of the board. I have a couple of announcements tonight. First, I'd like to introduce the second half of our summer youth work program. We introduced the first half of our summer youth workers last weekend. And let me say, prior to turning it over to Mr. Brooks, that the consensus from our department heads is that this has been an exceptionally helpful group of young people, and our department heads are very happy to have their services this summer. So thank you to the workers that are here, and also thank you to Golden Triangle Planning and Development District for the excellent work you've done coordinating the program. Mr. Brooks, would you like to introduce our youth?
If y'all stand up, this is the second half. I'm not going to go name by name because it is a good many of them. But I do want to thank the board again for applying for the grant and offering the opportunity to these young people to earn some extra money this summer. They actually got their first paychecks yesterday. So hopefully they have not spent it all yet. But they were very appreciative, and they, so far from what we hear, enjoying the work and glad that they can be of some assistance to the city.
I now have the privilege of introducing our new newest employees. First, I'd like to introduce our newest firefighter, Mr. Edwin C. Scruggs. It is my pleasure to welcome Edwin Scruggs to the Starkville Fire Department as our newest firefighter. He is originally from Rome, New York, but grew up in North Carolina. He is a graduate of Pinecrest High School Edwin received his associate's degree in electronic engineering technology from Wake Technical Community College in Raleigh, North Carolina. Before joining the city of Starkville, he worked for Designers Gallery as a furniture store associate. Edwin and his wife are parents of 4 children, daughters Jordan and Jashana, Jadis, Daisha, and son Charles. Edwin considers himself a jack of all trades. In his spare time, he enjoys working on cars, carpentry repair, welding, cooking, and spending time with his family. Please join me in welcoming Edwin.
Do it outside.
I'd now like to introduce our newest member of the community development team, Mr. Daniel Haviland. Daniel is our new city planner. He is originally from Ocean Springs, Mississippi, and is a graduate of Ocean Springs High School. He graduated from Mississippi State University with a Bachelor of Science degree in landscape architecture. Prior to becoming city planner, Daniel was self-employed as a landscape architect. Daniel is the proud father of 2 children, son Walker and daughter Zoe. During his spare time, Daniel enjoys saltwater fishing, hunting, and Mississippi State sports. Please join me in welcoming Daniel. That concludes my comments this evening. Do we have any comments from the members of the board? Alderman Carter.
I can do it, or you can. I just say welcome back to Chief Nichols. Is he? Okay. Yeah, glad to have you back. We missed you. And with that, also, I'd like to say, Assistant Chief Thomas did a good job, great job while you're gone. So, also kudos to him. Thank you.
And for those of you that don't know, Chief Nichols just completed the FBI Academy. He has spent the last 3 months training and testing vigorously, and we're happy to report that he made us very proud as a community. And it says a lot about him and the quality of law enforcement that we're known for in Starkville, that he was invited to attend the FBI Academy because it is a very exclusive opportunity. So let's give him a hand. Are there any further comments by the members of the board? Alderman Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Speaking with the gentleman from 7 today, he indicated that it would be okay for me to make the following announcement. He indicated that the funeral service for his son, Sir Haver Fair, will be this coming Saturday at 11 a.m. at the Griffin United Methodist Church on West Main Street to the west of the Oktibbeha County Circuit Court Building Annex. That is this coming Saturday at 11 a.m. And he did also indicate to me that West Memorial Funeral Home is handling the funeral services. So this coming Saturday at 11 a.m. and West Memorial Funeral Home is handling the service. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any further comments by the members of the board? Any further comments? Any further comments? Seeing none, we'll now hear citizen comments. Any citizen wishing to make comments this evening may do so by coming forward, introducing yourself, and you'll be recognized to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes.
Good evening, my name is Alvin, turning Ward 7. If I could pass on the condolence from
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
The citizen has a few concerns. Like we have a few people that's blind and they have blind sea dog, and they get sort of nervous when people want to pet those dogs. Those are working dogs, and if you pet those dogs, whatever, they get off track, and we wouldn't want the dog or the blind person to get hit. We would like for the people to kind of take that under consideration for the blind. Also, we would like to we're sort of frustrated with the way that things are being handled in the sanitation department. But we hope that you make the right decision, because we feel like that we're getting the idea that we're trying to do away with the sanitation department, and the citizens do not want that.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Do we have any further citizen comments?
My name is Mashonda Bush, and I want to make two comments. One is, I think I understand at the Planning and Zoning Committee, I brought up the issue at the condos at the end of Vine Street and property at 721. It's my understanding they are in code, so my question now, is there anything that can be done to add additional safety for the residents living out of that driveway? Because of the brick wall and the pole that's there, if you're backing out, I backed out into the mailman because I didn't see him. If you go out forward, the people that turn onto the street sometimes come a lot faster than expected, and it's really too hard to stop. So as a measure to maybe prevent an accident, is there anything that can be done to try to?
Mr. Sanders, would you like to speak to the
Yeah, I tried to call him.
current status of the situation she's referring to?
You're referring to the property at the intersection of Yellow Jack and Vine Street?
Right by the 721 is right behind the apartment, where the brick wall is and the big pole. Yes.
Myself and Officer Ballard made a site inspection about 2 weeks ago. And as far as the intersection at Yellow Jacket and Vine Street, the fence that's currently there does meet the site distance triangle. With regards to the drive further to the north, any property owner in the state, in the city of Starkville, can have a fence along their property line. So
The question is not the property line. The question is, as a matter of backing out or entering onto the street, because of the pole, because of the brick wall there and the pole, there's a loss of vision. So you miss vehicles coming. So is there a preventive measure something that can be done to prevent an accident? What I'm saying is, there have been several times I've tried to back out or drive out, and I've been scared because of the speed of the people coming up that road, or, like I said, I almost backed over the mailman, and that frightened both of us.
sure, and it would be also, but as far as restrictions on fence being constructed.
Not an issue of offense. Can there be can something be done to improve the safety in that
Well,
area?
that's what I'm getting at.
Okay.
The ordinance essentially only applies to a fence either issued wood, metal, or
Okay,
brick.
the light pole be removed
Uh,
because it's blocking the view to get onto the street.
I would have to get with the
Okay.
people at Starkville Electric about moving the electric pole. But as far as the location of the fence, the only place in the ordinance that we regulate the height or location of the fence is at a corner lot.
And that's not what I'm questioning. I'm just looking at the safety. My
Miss-
parents, yes.
Mr. Sanders, can you do a site visit with Mr. Kemp to see if there's anything that can be done to make the condition more safe?
I'll be glad
That's
to.
what I'm asking.
All right.
Thank you.
Ms. Bush, I have-
So it's not the fence that's the issue,
I
it's
don't-
the light pole.
The problem is there is an obstruction of the view trying to get onto the street. And if the fence is in code, there's also a post there. Getting out is creating a problem with traffic coming from the south end of the street.
Me and Mr. Kemp will look at an inspection.
Thank you.
Alderman Maynard, did you have a question?
You're talking about the safety coming from Vine to Yellow
No,
Jacket.
I am talking about the safety from the resident of 721 onto Vine. because you can't see the the vehicles coming up Vine Street from the south end. Because the way when you back out, you're looking this way. When you get past the fence, there's a pole.
What is that?
It's a light pole,
It's a light
the
pole.
street pole.
So,
And
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
When I made my inspection, I was looking at the fence. To be honest with you, I did not look at the.
In combination, those two backing out of the street creates a problem.
But, myself and Mr. Kemp would be happy
Yes,
to
sir.
make an inspection.
And the other thing is in the minutes, when we wrote our appeal, I noticed that you highlighted the individuals that actually signed the petition versus who actually owns property there.
The highlighted areas, you're talking about the 4 property owners that
Yes.
are highlighted? Those are the persons that live or own property within 160 feet.
Okay.
Which, if there was 15, so 3 would require the 20% rule, which requires a supermajority
Okay.
of approval by the board for the proposed design.
Okay, the reason why I bring this up is because Zenobia Jordan signed this, and she's not one of the individuals highlighted, and I thought that needed to be corrected, and noted that she was one of the people that opposed to it.
Well, that's fine, and she has indicated that in the petition. It's just, according to the tax databases, she doesn't live within 160 feet of the subject property.
She owns the property.
She may, well,
Okay, then that part was not clear to me. Okay. Then I'm done.
Thank you, Ms. Bush. Do we have any further citizen comments? Any further citizen comments?
Hi, I'm Cece Hurd. I'm with Mary's Youth Council, and I just wanted to thank y'all for all the work y'all do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any further citizen comments? Do we have any further citizen comments? Any further citizen comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move to public appearances. And we have 2 public appearances scheduled tonight. The first is by the Chief Administrative Officer Taylor Adams and Community Development Director Buddy Sanders to give a code enforcement report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Board. We will be brief, very brief. This is simply a public service announcement. You all will remember we made some adjustments to the administrative hearing process. It would have been roughly 3 months ago as a means of routing these through, routing repeat offenders and delinquent fines through the municipal court. First, we're appreciative to Judge Favor, Mr. Rook, and the court clerk for their assistance, and I should say as well as the prosecutor, city prosecutor, for their assistance in putting this process together. And we're thankful to the board for your support in this initiative. But this is basically just to let the public know that we are sending the first round of these old delinquent fines. We have notified all of the citizens that are affected by this a number of times, as recently as 10 days ago.
on some of the issues, yes.
And this is just a public this is just an announcement for the public that they've got about 20 days left. By the next time we meet, we will have routed these to the court, and it will be out of our hands. So please, like I say, just to that end, for those who have old, and I should say these are not fines related to the police department. These are fines related to code enforcement. These are, properties that have not been maintained, violations of sign ordinances, things of that nature, that run through our code enforcement officer Jeff Lyle's area, who works with Mr. Sanders. So like I say, should specify these are not police matters. These are general ordinance matters that are administrative, but but we'll be sending the first round to the municipal court in the next 20 days. So, thank you.
I've got a question. All right, yeah, I supported this because, again, we gotta have some teeth, for our code enforcement office to actually, maintain some of these ordinances. Is there any kind of verification process? Let's say somebody argues that they didn't get the letter. Is there any kind of, is there some way that we can ensure they receive the letter? Is this certified mail? Is this, how did these go out?
They go out just regular US mail, but,
So you're assuming if it wasn't returned to sender that they got it, but it wasn't certified?
no,
That's
it's
right.
not certified.
But
And-
we send it to the property owner of record at the courthouse on
Right.
whom that fine was levied.
And then secondly, before I get the calls, is if it's like probably a $15 on average fine, if they don't pay it, it's $124.50 added, or how much? is
At
gonna be added?
minimum, the minimums, basically, if it routes through the municipal court, then the state assessment is added, which is at minimum $144.25 plus the cost of the fine. But the judge, at his discretion, has the ability to go up to $500 on that. So it'd be $144.25 at a minimum to a maximum of $500 with the fine added on top of that.
What I foresee is that probably this first round of individuals may pay some fines, but after that, I think what you'll see in the very near future is if somebody gets a fine for some kind of violation, that they say, hey, it's a whole lot cheaper to pay the $15 fine. And if they want to contest that, it's got to go to municipal court anyway, right?
That's correct. And that's why we're doing this. Those that are out there, these are by and large for the most part, $25 fines. And so this is just us saying, making a last good faith effort to say, hey, you got 20 days left, you pay 25, or it's going to be about 175.
Yeah, and I understand. I mean, I have a lot of issues with this time of season with grass growing the way it is, but the vacant lots, people that just don't cut it for 6 or 8 months at a time. A lot of trash violations, things like that, but I want to make sure that my constituents have the opportunity. I want to at least know that they got the letter. I'd hate to fine them if the letter's ended up at the wrong address or, that kind of, you see what I'm saying?
Can we send out one more round certified?
We can.
Or maybe from now on, certified
Well,
mail when you do send them out?
I think it's a good point, and we'd be happy to send one more round of letters following this presentation, certified, so that we know that they're received by the correct party. If that'd be all right.
That'd be fine if the board approves it. That's just going from a $25 fine to, that's
About 170.
exponentially, yeah.
How many letters do we have to send out?
We have 120 cases.
What's the price break between regular mail and certified mail?
Offhand, I can't tell you, but it's substantial.
It's
It's around $5.60. I
Sorry?
think it's around $5.60 certified receipt.
It will become somewhat expensive.
we'll add it. We'll add it to the fine.
You can do that. I don't think you can do that.
No, I mean,
You'll recoup that certified mail cost and the fact that they pay the fine that they have
Well,
had
that's- I mean, that's-
outstanding anyway, so.
That's the point. I mean, if we get anything out of this, it will be more than, most of these are how old, buddy?
At least 6 months.
And we have some that are, I know of one that's 3.5 years old.
Yeah, they, all the ones that I am aware of are minimum of 6 months.
Do we have any further questions or comments? Alderman Webb.
Legally, would we be able to announce this may be in the newspaper?
Certainly.
The city can provide whatever notice it wants to that it's doing this.
Yeah, we could
can
run
run
an ad, we can run a general ad, or we can run an ad that lists all of the names.
I think that would be beneficial.
To run the
Almost
names?
awesome.
Pardon me?
You said to run the names or just the ad?
Legally, would we be able to put their names in there?
I would advise just
Yeah.
running an ad.
Just run an ad, okay.
And then second thing, before I get a call from a constituent, we blindside, this person's got a 3.5-year-old fine, have they been given notification before? I mean, they know they owe it.
Multiple
We've worked
Okay.
this list at length over the last 90 days.
Okay.
Any further questions or comments from the members of the board? Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you, gentlemen. Our next public appearance is the much-awaited public appearance of the auditor to deliver our annual audit report.
Thank you, Mayor. It's always a highlight of a year for the auditor to come before the board. I hope to make this as boring as the report is. As always, we appreciate the opportunity to work with the city of Starkville and appreciate the opportunity to work again. I met with Taylor and Lisa last week, and we've already started the process and implementing a few things, and hopefully will speed up the delivery of the report. This is much later than I like to come before you. Of course, you had a lot of new faces and a lot of different positions this year. But again, we hope to have this report to you and something that's a lot more usable to you. The document's now up to about 80 pages. I'm convinced it's going to be an encyclopedia before I retire. As the AICPA continues to add more reporting requirements, the pages keep getting more numerous. I'm not going to go through all 80 pages. You've got a copy of it. If you have any questions, please give me a call. I'll be glad to discuss them one-on-one. I am going to touch on some of the highlights of it. It was a clean opinion. In accounting terminology, it's called an unqualified opinion. But it was a clean opinion. The financial records were materially correct. In fact, the financial records were in good shape this year. We had continue to be pleased with the software and a lot of the controls that you've heard me come before the board before and say we've had weaknesses in controls with the software and some other procedures that are continue to be implementing or making life easier as an auditor because it's catching things that it should catch and designed to catch things that it should catch to keep misstatements from happening and reduce the number of adjusting entries that we have to make at the end of the year. So we did have a clean opinion. The meat of the financial statements in this document really starts about page 50. That's where you get into what you're all accustomed to seeing in your monthly financial statements. At year end, September 30th, the general fund had expendable resources of just slightly south of $1.4 million, which is a good place for it to be in compared to other budget years. We had a surplus in revenue of about $60,000. Again, that's in an auditor's opinion, that's where you want to be. You want to be break even because you don't want to certainly have spent out of reserves or have overtaxed. So the financial numbers were strong. Lisa will work with any reprogramming that has to go into the budget because that number does not include any reprogrammed capital outlays that you may have encumbered prior to September 30th. There were only two significant deficiencies, for lack of a better word. We continue, it's getting closer every year, but we continue to not be able to completely reconcile 100% our accounts payable and payroll registers. Getting closer, we're catching more and more of these old items that were out there and making adjustments for them. And hopefully we'll have that removed in the next year to 2 years. And the one that's probably the silliest finding that has to go into it is that we prepared the financial statements. Well, that's what everybody expects the auditors to do. And we have to put that in there as a finding that we prepared the financial statements. But we add to that you have the quality of the experience to have prepared them yourself. You just relied on us to prepare those GASB 34 financial statements. That's it in a nutshell. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have for me. Yes, sir.
Is that, you're saying 1.4 million is when you and I took office together and been 6 years ago. that was about 250, right? Is that the one we tried to get to 750 by the end of
That's
last
correct.
term? And
That's correct.
And I guess that's leading into a question. That's great then.
It is great.
That's great. Then, I know we're shooting for 750,000, basically reserve fund, and we got to that, and now we're at 1.4. Is there anywhere, I guess I'm asking the mayor or y'all together, if there's any thought of what you want to have as a cap? 2 million, $1.5 million, or?
Well, remember, starting this next year, you won't be starting at 1.4.
That's right.
Well, City Hall?
Because you budgeted approximately $600,000 of surplus revenue in your general budget last year. So you'll start with your roughly, it won't be exactly this number, but the way you budgeted it is you'll start with $750,000, which will be your ending fund that you budgeted from last year. The reality is there, hopefully, will be some additional surplus revenue that Randy will tell us about next year. That will go on top of the $750,000, and that will become your beginning cash for fiscal year 2016.
And Alderman Carver, I've always looked toward a number of about $950 to $1 million is where I was comfortable saying that's a solid number now. You can ask 2 other CPAs in my office, and they'll say that's $250,000 too high, and you'll ask 2 others, and they'll say it's $250,000 too low. You know, there is no right answer to that. It depends on the discipline of the board that's administering the money. You know, I'm comfortable saying $650, you know, because y'all keep such a tight purse string on the budget. There would have been previous boards that I may have said 20 years ago that we needed to have $4 million in the bank.
Not a generally accepted accounting principle,
There
like a
is
percentage
not a number that you can find in any accounting literature that says you should keep this much in place.
Now, you have set as a goal, as a board, having an ending fund balance of 5% of your general fund. And that is slightly higher than where you are right now. Very close.
And that's not a bad number.
Would you say 5 to 7% is a good solid number?
8% is a number that is just, you talk to a lot of people in the profession, 8% is a number that just jumps out. But again, for the competency of your financial management, you know, that's a strong number. That's a good number. It can drop below that 8%.
Any further questions or comments for Mr. Scribb? Any further questions or comments? Any further questions or comments? Thank you very much, Mr. Scribb.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, give me a call.
Thank you.
All right, the next matter that we have before us is an appeal on a planning and zoning matter. It's rezoning case RZ 14-03, a recommendation to rezone a piece of property that was made by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And now this is a little bit different than the most common appeals that you see, in that in this case it is not the applicant that is making the appeal, but it is the surrounding neighborhood that is appealing a favorable decision that was made for the applicant. So we will conduct this public hearing in the same way that we typically conduct public hearings. However, it will appear a little bit different since the appellant in this case is the surrounding neighborhood. The appellant will start off the proceeding. So after Mr. Sanders has made the presentation on how the matter has proceeded at this point, we will move into our appeal by the parties. And we'll hear first from the neighborhood that is appealing the decision. You will have a collective total of 15 minutes. So if you would, decide amongst yourselves whether you would like to divide that time up amongst multiple spokespersons, or whether you'd like one person to take the full 15 minutes. If you'd like, I can just keep a running clock, and I can tell you when you hit 15 minutes, or I can do standard increments of 3 minutes per person. So while Mr. Sanders is making his presentation, if you could just among yourselves decide how you would like to utilize your 15 minutes. After the appellant has finished making their presentation, we will then hear from the applicant. An applicant, I'd ask you to do the same thing, although you're smaller, so this is a little easier process for you to decide amongst yourself. I see you are represented by counsel. Just let me know if you'd like counsel to make all of your comments, if y'all would like to split your comments in some manner for your 15 minutes. Are there any questions from the parties? No, this is a time to make a presentation to the board. Any further questions of the parties? All right, Mr. Sanders.
Sonic Properties is requesting a rezoning from R3 multifamily to B1 buffer district behind the Sonic that's located at Highway 12 and Vine Street. The property here is Sonic, and this is a subject property that is pertaining to the subject rezoning. Currently, as I stated before, is R3, and the applicant is requesting a rezoning to B1 buffer. The property has been vacant since 2002, where a house was removed from the property. The Planning Commission is recommending approval with conditions. The conditions being a 7-foot brick fence along the southern property line, a 6-foot wooden fence along the eastern property line, that all outdoor lighting be shielded away and downlit from residential areas, and that no commercial structure be constructed on the 711 Vine Street property. I should state that Sonic has indicated they want to tear down the existing building that's been there since the mid-70s and construct a Sonic that is similar to the one across from Walmart, with less bays and more of a drive-through. And the drive-through would go onto the 711 Vine Street property, along with some parking spaces, a dumpster pad, and a menu board. Are there any questions?
Any questions or comments from the members of the board for Mr. Sanders? Any questions or comments from the members of the board?
Mr. Mayor, may I be heard?
You may.
Board, I was going to hold my comments till the agenda item, but since Mr. Sanders laid the groundwork, I think it might be good to lay some legal framework so when you hear the facts from the appellant and the appellee, you have something to filter that through. Remember that the burden of proof is on the applicant, even though that this is an appeal, and the standard of proof is clear and convincing evidence, and that is in between a preponderance of an evidence, which merely means 50% plus 1, but it's less than beyond a reasonable doubt, the criminal standard. Secondly, the test is twofold. Number one, whether in your mind there's a change in the neighborhood to justify the proposed rezoning, and number two, just as important, is there a public need for this proposed rezoning? Of course, the concept of the neighborhood is left up to your discretion under the law. We touched on this earlier. The supermajority rule is in play tonight, and that's a supermajority of all of the aldermen regardless of absences, so it still takes 5 votes tonight to pass this matter for the applicant. One important thing that's a wrinkle in this case is that this same zoning request was brought before the board in January of 2011, and the case law is clear that you only look at change now dating back to January of 2011 when this was denied the last time. So your time frame for change is more narrow than it would be otherwise.
Our need,
What's that?
our public need.
Correct.
All right, are there any further questions or comments for either Mr. Sanders or the city attorney?
I have one question. Number 3, Mr. Sanders. I noticed that it says all outdoor lighting should be shielded away and down from residential areas. I noticed that should, I mean, are we definite that they are going to do that? Will that will be done?
They would have to have the lighting shielded away from the Vine Street areas before a certificate of occupancy would be issued for the new building.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or comments from the members of the board?
I just have one. Mr. Sanders, what is the rationale for rezoning from R3 to B1? Why is the applicant seeking that reason?
Because an R3 designation would not allow any type of food service use, and a B1 district will. And even though the building will not be placed, the new building will not be placed on the 7-Eleven Vine Street property, the drive-through lane and the menu board will be, which is part of a restaurant use.
And
The
R3 does not
R3
allow
R3
parking.
designation will not allow that.
And R3 also doesn't allow parking, is that correct?
That is correct.
Any further questions or comments? Any further questions or comments? All right, seeing none, we'll hear from the parties now. Have the residents of the neighborhood decided how you would like to use your time?
Yes.
Right, and what I neglected to mention earlier, since you go first, if you would like to reserve some time at the end, you can have an opportunity to respond to the comments of the applicant. An applicant, you get the benefit of hearing their presentation first, so you will not get a rebuttal. Yeah. And will you be reserving any time? The what now?
We'll split time. We want reserve time.
All right.
We need reserve
How much time would you
because
like?
I just need about 5 minutes.
All right, about 5 minutes, and you'll have 5, and then are you reserving 5 for the end? What now?
Yes.
5 for the end, okay.
Hi, I'm in I reside at 712 Vine Street. I am appealing this request to approve rezoning due to the fact that the area is basically elderly people, and the way they're trying to redo it is still, it's not helping with the noise, which we've had problems with, trash, we've had problems with traffic, we've had problems with coming through the street. So what they're requesting to me is not significant to the neighborhood or will help the neighborhood. It's going to still hinder the neighborhood. Like I say, it's a lot of elderly people that still live on that street, and we've been pretty much a quiet neighborhood. But the way they're even doing the buffer zone, it's still not blocking the noise and the trash and everything else that would be facing the actual street. And they're saying it would, and I just don't see that happening to the way they're saying that they want to redo it. So I hope you all consider to deny this, well, to appeal, to approve our appeal to deny this for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Arnold. Ms. Arnold, you used 2 minutes, so you have a total balance of 13 minutes, and you'll have 8 minutes remaining if you still wish to save 5 for rebuttal.
My name is Mashonda Bush. The first thing I want to address is the change of the area since 2011 and now. There hasn't been much of a change. What's commercial has always been commercial. What's residential has always been residential. The other thing is, prior to all of this, the Planning and Zoning Committee requested that before they bring this before the board again, that they actually talk to the community before this decision was made. That was never done. After the planning and zoning meeting was done, I found out, because I went and talked to all of the people on the street, that someone did come and talk to some of the people, but some of the residents of the street are not clear as to what Sonic is trying to do. What was made mention was that they would not have an outlet onto Vine Street. There is an outlet onto Vine Street, and they can go right or left when they leave Sonic. Some of the residents are under the impression is that this is going to be a sheer drive-through, which means they're going to drive in and drive out. There are no stationary areas. That's not what's proposed. As far as the brick wall, my concern with that, yes, I do believe that there should be a buffer first. The brick wall creates a problem for me because I am the house right behind the property at question. There have been several incidences where the police have found themselves in our backyards. So you are creating another area for someone to hide out if they're running or they have committed an illegal crime. They had a robbery at R&M, and the people landed up over there. They had a robbery at restaurant Ruby Tuesdays, and there are hiding places. So you're creating another environment to allow for something to happen in that case. Again, the resident area has not changed. The community has not changed. My thing is, if they're going to tear down, why can't they just deal with what they have? Build it so that it accommodates what they have room in. There are some codes currently that they're not meeting, and there's no justification for them not meeting. Like right now, because it is a commercial property, there should already be a buffer fence there. And for years, there has not been one there. So there are measures that they could have taken to have helped the community in that aspect. So is there a need? I don't know. But what we're saying is we don't want it. To expand means that Mignon's house is open to all of that traffic. All of those cars that move in and out will be flashing into her household, and that disturbs her residents. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Bush. All right, you used 3 minutes, so there's still 5 minutes remaining, in addition to the 5 minutes remaining for rebuttal. Is there anyone that wishes to speak from the neighborhood at this time? All right, seeing no one, we'll hear now from the applicant. You'll have 15 minutes.
If I may, I would like to get Buddy to pull the map back up for us. Excuse me. All right, thank you. And just for information purposes, since it's a public hearing, are we supposed to have a sign-in sheet? I think we've done that in the past.
You can just announce yourself since you're on TV, Johnny.
It'll be recorded in a minute. So.
Okay, all right. I'm John Moore, attorney for RLM Sonic Properties LLC. We represent the original petitioner in this action. And for the record, the Planning and Zoning Commission approved this with only one nay vote. So based on the Planning and Zoning Commission's findings, they found, as a matter of fact, that there was a change or changed in conditions in the area, and that it would benefit the city of Starkville. So the burden is on them to prove otherwise. Now, there's been an issue made about what the time frame is that you can look to as to the change in condition. I would point out one thing is that when the application was done in late 2010 and heard by the board in 2011, the actual person that made the petition did not own this real estate. It was made by an employee, never approved by RLM Sonic Properties LLC, because they became owners of the property in 2008. That petition was actually executed and presented by an employee, so it was never approved by the corporation. Now, in spite of that, since 2011, there's been tremendous change on Highway 12. And I consider Highway 12 to be, quote, the neighborhood, because it is the main commercial corridor that goes through Starkville, Mississippi. And whether we start at 2011 or way back in 1973 and go forward, there's been a phenomenal amount of change. In that period of time, commercial properties go through an economic and functional obsolescence. You can go up and down Highway 12 and look at the things that have existed in the 70s and have since been torn down. One reason I remember it so well, I got my driver's license in about 1975, and I was going up and down Highway 12 every chance I got an opportunity. If you start on the east side of Highway 12, close to campus, we've now got a Chick-fil-A with that, which has all occurred since that period of time. We've got the Buffalo Wild Wings. We also have the condos that Mr. Tabor built there. Well, back in the 70s, that was Pizza Hut, where we all went to get pizza before we went to the movie theater. And there was a putt-putt golf. All of that has been destroyed in the last 40 years and is now in the process of having something else built there. Also, McDonald's has changed locations. It was on south of Highway 12. Now it's on the north side of Highway 12, and it's since gone through a remodeling. Then the McDonald's on the south side was torn down and is now Bojangles. Part of what was a Holiday Inn is now a CVS Pharmacy. We've gone from an old Wendy's that's now a check cashing place to a new Wendy's. On the corner across from our property, on Highway 12, which is owned by Dan Moreland, way back in the day then, it was a bait shop and a gas station. And now it's a finance company, and I think there's a crawfish place there. So it's been a tremendous amount of change. Also, in the last few years, there's been a significant amount of residential change, and that to a higher density type residential, including garden properties, which has gone from R1 to R3A, showing an increased density in the area. All of Annabella, they have built the motorhome area up there that's just on the east side of South Montgomery Street. So over the last 3 years, we've had significant amount of change, even if you use that time frame. Based on those changes, it's obvious we've had enough change to show that there's been a change in condition that's satisfactory to meet that requirement, which is exactly what the Planning and Zoning Commission found. Does it meet with the criteria that it's in conformity with public need for orderly and harmonious growth? Well, the whole purpose of a buffer district is to try to shelter areas where there's a lower density going to a higher density area. R3 is a medium density residential, so we're trying to alleviate some of that jump by using a B1 buffer district, which is the whole reason that B1 buffer district was created. Now, as Buddy pointed out, that lot, that's a very small lot. It's 60 foot of frontage on Vine Street, only about 130 feet deep. So it's about 78 to 7,900 square feet just in that lot. We're basically using the north portion of that lot, the northern 30 feet, more or less, for the drive-through lane and the menu board. What Sonic has discovered over the last several years that people don't want to pull in there and park and get their food. They want to use the drive-through. So based on that current model that Sonic has now, they're seeing that the biggest portion of their business is drive-through traffic, which is what they want to try to conform to. And this will not conform. There's currently 23 parking spots in the Sonic as it exists now. Under the new model, there will only be 10 parking places, and the rest will be a double drive-through. The way this thing is laid out, which you don't always consider that, but we're mentioning this because it addresses the concerns that we have and that the neighborhood has addressed, and we're trying to correct some of those things. And it can't be corrected as it currently exists, so it has to be torn down and completely redone.
I'll stop you right there. So the building will be torn down?
Correct.
Okay.
It'll be parking and all, everything, it'll be down to the dirt. There will be one entrance off Vine Street, which will be for employee parking and to pick up the trash receptacle. If you're coming in off of Vine Street, there will be no way to access the bays to park and order food. There will be no ways to use the drive-through. You will have to come in off Highway 12. That's going to alleviate some of the traffic off Vine.
Can I ask questions during this point while we got at this?
You may.
The protocol, that's fine. So I'm thinking Vine Street. What's gonna keep somebody? I'm thinking McDonald's by Strangebrew. What's gonna keep somebody from coming in? That's basically what's happening at McDonald's down there.
Mm-hmm.
They have to, but you're saying if they come in off Vine, they're still gonna have to come all the way back around and get back into it, or why would they always?
They wouldn't want to come through Vine Street because they can't get in and order. They'll have to come in off 12.
Curb or something there.
Right. It's gonna alleviate the people coming in from Vine Street because there's no way to get in there and order. you'll have to come in through Highway 12.
Because the front
So
of
the
it
only
up on-
people that would actually be using the Vine Street exit, which we have to have for the garbage receptacle and the parking,
Okay, thank you.
is the 10 bays could actually exit Vine Street. And that's the only way it could be used, by the 10 people actually exiting onto Vine Street. So, by reducing the number of stalls from 23 to 10, we're going to alleviate the amount of traffic that would actually go out onto Vine Street. And with less stalls, there's going to be less noise, less traffic. It's going to be more friendly to the neighborhood. Also, with the 7-foot retaining wall that they won't build, it's going to alleviate some of the noise, some of the visual look that they don't want to look at. It's going to keep the trash from blowing into the yard. At one time, Ms. Bush had told me that cars were actually coming through. The lot's vacant now. They tore the house down in 2002. It's going to keep cars from coming through that lot. And at some point, she said they were coming into her driveway and then exiting Vine Street. It's going to eliminate all of that. So we've tried to orchestrate this thing where we have addressed the concerns of the neighbors as far as traffic, trash, noise. We've agreed to the lights being downlit, and that should have been shall be downlit instead of should be. It's supposed to be mandatory. So
Thank you.
we're trying to do those things that would alleviate the concerns that they have and still get the benefit to the city by the increased tax base. We anticipate our sales tax to be up 15%, closer to the area of the new Sonic, which is going to be good for the community. And you always, in order to be in the restaurant business, if you look at all the restaurants on Highway 12, every 7 to 10 years they remodel. We're 40-something years out from a remodel. I mean, this thing is totally functionally obsolete. Something has got to be done. And by giving something new there, it's going to increase not only the property values for Sonics, it's going to increase the property values of the other people as well. And it's going to give us the opportunity to address the concerns that they have, which can't be addressed if it stays like it is. We can't fix any of those problems if this Sonic stays just like it is, under any circumstances. It's not functionally possible. Let's see, give me one more second. We ask that the board vote to uphold the finding of the Planning and Zoning Commission because it's consistent with the facts. And that in order for you to not uphold that, you would have to find that they made a erroneous factual finding. So with that, a couple of other things. If you look at the zoning map, you can see our subject property in blue. Sonic is located on the northern property, that little rectangular shape there on the east side of Vine Street. And if you look on north, east, and west, all of that property is already zoned commercial. It's already C2. The only property that's not C2 is, of course, our subject property in the R3 tract that's just below us. In fact, some of the parties that have objected, which they have the right to do, their properties are zoned C2. We're asking for a lesser zoning than they actually have. So we're trying to be good corporate citizens, do something that's good for the community, do something that's good for the neighborhood, get a zoning that's even less than some of the properties that surround it in order to be a positive influence on the corporate community, increase the facial appearance of Highway 12, and do what's in the best interest, one, of our clients, 2, of the city, and 3, of the neighbors that surround us. That's all I have here.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
All right. Is that all our 15 minutes, or is that all my 12?
That's
That's it?
That's it.
You're not up to 15.
Okay.
If you
All right.
want to
I
talk,
just-
you've got about 4 more minutes.
Okay, I'm gonna let Molly speak then. How about that?
Molly Jackson with Moore Law Office, also representing the original appellant. To clarify, the subject property is owned by Ernest Jacobson and RLM Sonic Properties. They each have a 1/2 undivided interest in the property. The petition that was done back in 2010, 2011 was done only by Ernest Jacobson. Our position is that the RLM Sonic Properties and Ralph Mason should not be held to what Mr. Jacobson did without his knowledge. However, if the board feels that it should be changed from 2011 forward instead of 1973 forward, I believe Mr. Moore has already explained there's been significant change since 2011. There is an increasing need for commercial sites with all of the additional residential areas and the additional people coming into the area. Highway 12, there's a strong change that requires that the change is necessary and desirable. The proposed rezoning to the B1 buffer zone is an attempt to ease that transition. We could have tried again for the C2, but the B1, we feel, helps the residents and eases all of the needs that they have. The harmonious growth is helped along by their concerns of traffic. We're hoping that the traffic is reduced by the bays and the one entrance off of Vine Street where you only have access to the garbage bin or the parking area. The garbage bin is being moved into the interior lot of the property so that garbage will no longer be spilling onto the street, and the brick wall will help prevent it to be moving into the residential areas. The primary flow of traffic will be again off of Highway 12 and not coming from Vine Street. The noise will be reduced by the brick wall and the reduction of the bays. Additionally, we just like to close in saying that we feel that we've met all the criteria necessary for rezoning. We hope that the board does approve the Planning and Zoning Committee's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Thank you.
All right, the appellant now has 5 minutes to make any rebuttal.
Michonne Bush again. First, I want to address the driving across the vacant lot. Some of that is also done by the employees. These are people who work for Sonic. They're cutting through my driveway to get to that property. And they are aware of that, and they haven't done anything about it. As far as the commercial zoning on the east side, on the west side of Sonic, some of that I do believe is a scribbler error, because I had property on the other side of Vine Street, and it was discovered that it was coded as commercial, and we found that it was scribbler error. As long as I've lived on Vine Street, which is 40 years, as long as Sonic has been there, all of that has been residential. So I do think that that might need to be investigated. As far as commercializing and the change, this is home for me. So we want to talk about commercial change. Yes, Buffalo Wild Wings and Chick-fil-A is there, but that property has always been commercial. It's always had a hotel and a movie theater and Pizza Hut. So the change may be that new buildings are there, but it's always been commercial. So when I look at change, I am saying the amount of commercial lots that are there have not changed. So for me, I don't see the change. What I'm saying is, it's always been commercial property, so therefore there's no change, because there's always been a business there. The same person, to our knowledge, has always come in here and made the same appeal. So it doesn't matter to us that the people that own the property did not get along. They should have been communicating with each other and knowing that one person was making an appeal, not the other. This has come before this committee several times, and again, I want to state, we are not difficult people, but we'd like to be communicated with. There's no reason why they can't come and sit down with everyone, and maybe we can come to an agreement. But to do it this way means that we have individuals that we're working with that, to me, appear to be dishonest. What are you trying to hide that you can't communicate, and you're trying to show yourself friendly? If the structure needs to be rebuilt, let it be rebuilt in the area that it is. They have 23 stalls. That means that they're going to reduce to 10 stalls. Why do they need the extra land? They have 23. That means there are 12 on one side and 11 on the other. If their goal is to make it a drive-through, reduce the amount of stalls. If the complaint is people don't want to actually park, make it more convenient. But as long as you leave that opening there, currently people are backing down into Highway 12, down and out. In the previous meeting, they said that the drive-through would mean that they would have a 2-minute in and out. Football games, basketball game, high-capacity traffic on Highway 12 is not going to allow them to get people in and out and onto Highway 12. It is not conducive. It is not reasonable, and I think that they should not be allowed to do that expansion onto the property, the said property at hand.
Thank you, Ms. Bush. Is there any further rebuttal? We've got about 2 minutes remaining.
Again, I just want to reiterate, when it comes to the B-wall, the buffer wall, it will not eliminate noise on Vine Street because of the fact that it's on the south end and east end. And the noise is actually coming out, which is the actual Vine Street, so I don't see how that's gonna, eliminate a problem there. Again, time has changed as far as Highway 12 goes, but the neighborhood is still the same, so we don't want it changed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Arnold. And that concludes the hearing from the parties on the matter. Are there any concluding comments by the members of the board before I conclude the public hearing? Alderman Carter.
Mayor, in the matter of voting on this, if we're in favor of it, it's not on the agenda, but if we're against it, we would vote yes for planning item C.
Yeah, the way it's worded on the agenda is a little bit cumbersome. What I would suggest is to make the motion either to approve the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission or to deny the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Under that item C?
Are you comfortable with that?
That's fine.
Which is,
Yep.
All right, any further questions or comments by the members of the board? Any further questions or comments by the members of the board? Seeing none, that will conclude this public hearing on the rezoning case RZ 14-03. The next matter you have before you is discussion and consideration of accepting the audit. Discussion. The audit was presented by Mr. Scribner.
Same move.
Motion has been made by Alderman Carver to accept the audited financial statements for fiscal year 2013 as presented by Randy Scrivener of Watkins, Warden, Stafford, PLLC. Alderman Carver, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Carver, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. The next matter you have before you is let's get final. Is a request for approval of the appeal of the Planning and Zoning Commission approval. And as I said before, probably the easiest way to think about this so that everybody knows what they're voting on is you have heard an appeal on the matter recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission. You should now consider whether to approve the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission or whether to deny the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Alderman Carver. Alderman Maynard.
Attorney, would you go over again what you stated earlier?
Sure. First of all, even though this was an appeal, the burden of proof remains with the applicant. And that burden of proof is by a clear and convincing evidentiary standard. And that standard is more than the standard you would get in a normal civil case, which is just a preponderance of the evidence, a little more than 50%, 50% plus one. But it's less than beyond a reasonable doubt in a criminal action. Speaking to their ownership statement, because that needs to be clarified, but the law doesn't consider a change in owners. The law considers, is this the same proposed rezoning, and is this the same piece of property? And so the time frame for change would date back to January 2011. The test is whether there has been enough change in your mind in the neighborhood to substantiate the proposed rezoning, and is there a public need for the proposed rezoning? And the law doesn't define what neighborhood is. That's up to your discretion.
I think as I look at it, I have to agree with Mr. Moore. I think there has been change all, no matter how you define that neighborhood. I think as you look around that neighborhood with the addition of Annabella, with the addition of the the other areas we see that. I would argue more as well with a public need. I think the addition of the brick wall, the addition of the wooden wall is going to enhance that corner. I disagree. I think it's going to make it much quieter. I don't necessarily agree with the attorneys in that the traffic is going to go down, because I do realize that they're going to want as many customers in there as they can get, but I do believe a 7-foot brick wall will be a sufficient buffer to block not only sound, but also that garbage blowing out and blowing away. I would make the recommendation that we approve the Planning and Zoning Commission request with the change, though, number 3, to say that all outdoor lighting shall be shielded away and downlit from residential areas, instead of should, which I think you agreed with as well and made that point. So I would make the motion that we accept the Planning and Zoning Commission request for approval of rezoning from R3 to buffer, with the inclusion of the 4 recommendations that they've made, with the previously mentioned change to number 3 to say shall instead of should.
Motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to approve the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission for rezoning case RZ 14-03 as presented, but with the following change. In condition number 3, as recommended, change the word should to shall. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Alderman
I
Walker.
do have one question for Mr. Sanders, if I might. Is there currently ingress, egress to the Sonic off of Vine Street?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I was going to question that because there used to be 2.
There's one now.
There's one, right?
So there is one.
There is one.
There is one.
Right there at the
Will
edge
be
of
one
12.
afterwards.
So we're talking about, I think I would, if Alderman Maynard would accept as a friendly amendment that we add one other condition, that there shall be only one ingress egress off of Vine Street.
I'm sorry for my error.
Alderman Maynard, do you accept that
I
as
do,
friendly?
yes,
amendment? All right, without objection, the motion has been amended to add a 4th condition, that there shall be only one point of ingress, egress from Vine Street. Excuse me, the 5th condition. Any objection to that? Any objection? All right, seeing none, that condition's been added as part of the motion. Alderman Walker, you still have the floor.
Furthermore, I would say that, not part of this motion, but along with Ms. Bush's comments earlier, that I think it would certainly be appropriate to have city staff, city engineer, city planner, Mr. Kemp, whoever issues to look at how might we improve both pedestrian and vehicular safety along Vine Street. There's no question that there's going to be traffic, and there's going to continue to be an increased demand for traffic as Yellow Jacket Drive and the properties that come on Yellow Jacket Drive in South Montgomery likely develop in the very near future. So the likelihood of increased traffic is there. And I think this would be an appropriate point to have city staff look at how can we best accommodate that, so we make travel safe and efficient for everybody on the street as much as possible.
All right, any further discussion? Alderman Carver.
I'm going to make these comments now while I can, but I'm going to vote in favor of this, and the reasons are when change starts happening in a community, and it is happening here, it's a snowball effect, and we've got to look at that. And there's been considerable change, especially since 2011, up and down Highway 12, and I only hope with this vote that we encourage other property owners who need a facelift to do that. But in the same token, while they're doing those facelifts, to do as this owner did, and at least do some of the some of the things that they've done with the buffer zone and with the fencing, and I think there has been some meeting in the middle. I think, it wasn't 100%, but I think that they went above and beyond what they had to do. The fencing, I do like the idea. The trash, the fact, hearing that people have cut through your yard blows my mind, but I don't think they can do that with a brick wall. So with all that being said, I think this is still gonna be a much needed facelift for that one restaurant, and I encourage other property owners, to go through these same processes, so, thank you.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? The city attorney has a series of questions he'd like to ask prior to proceeding.
Just one question. Alderman Maynard, for record purposes, is your motion based on a finding of fact of sufficient change in need as evidenced in the board packet and as presented by counsel for the applicant and by the objectors tonight?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, any further discussion? Any further discussion? Reminder, as a procedural matter, this requires 5 votes to pass. At this time, we'll now move into a show of hands vote on the motion from Alderman Maynard, which is the approval of the recommendation by the Planning and Zoning Commission for approval of rezoning case 14-03 with now 5 conditions. A word that was previously should in condition 3 has become shall, and a 5th condition has been added so that there will be only 1 point of ingress and egress on Vine Street. At this time, all those in favor of Alderman Maynard's motion, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, was unanimous. So by a vote of 6 in favor with 0 against, this measure passes. The next matter on the agenda is the consideration of a special event request by, excuse me. We had one matter that was removed from the consent agenda, request for approval of a 5-lot Country Club Estate Phase 3. And Alderman Little is going to recuse himself from this matter. Discussion.
Say move.
Motion has been made by Alderman Carver to approve of the 5-lot Country Club Estates Phase 3 subdivision plat with conditions as presented. Alderman Carver, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Carver, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. We'll give Alderman Little a moment to re-enter the room. Mr. Sanders, could you come introduce the next matter? It is a special event request by People of Purpose for the Juneteenth celebration to be held in Jail King Park with a parade in the area with the approximate cost to the city being $1,475 in in-kind services.
That's correct. The purpose for going to have an event in Jail King Park this Saturday. They're expecting around 1,000 or a little bit more than 1,000 spectators, and they will also have a parade in the neighborhood to the west of the park.
Discussion.
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Perkins.
Thank you for the recognition, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Sanders, just a few questions. I want to make sure that I'm consistent on how I handle matters. And I read a little bit about this in the newspaper. I want to be real clear that I'm supportive of this event, and I'm glad to see matters coming to the various neighborhoods that will be very good for the citizens and those that come therein.
Yes.
My first question is, who are the people of purpose? I'm just trying, some people have asked me. I just want to make sure I get that out for the record.
People of Purpose is a community organization, and
Okay.
they are here to raise money and awareness. This offer is here to answer any questions about the organization.
Right. My second question is why did this matter just make the agenda at 3:43 p.m. this evening as opposed to being on the regular agenda?
The special event committee met Thursday, and unfortunately, Ms. Alford could not make it to the meeting.
You said Ms. Alford, who's?
Ashford, excuse me, Ms. Ashford could not attend the meeting, and some questions came up with the committee. And so myself, Mr. Ashford, and city staff met Monday.
So the committee supposed to met on last week?
The committee did meet last week.
On last Wednesday?
last Thursday.
Last Thursday, the applicant was not there,
Applicant could not be present.
and we have a time that's set forth for these applicants to come forward and meet so we can get everything ready for the agenda, and the packet has to be ready by at least late Thursday or early Friday morning.
That is correct.
And don't misunderstand me, and these are just friendly questions, trying to get this information out. I'm not against this. So, last Thursday, the applicant did not meet with the committee.
That is correct.
And so the applicant met with either you or another person or persons this week.
Myself and sanitation director.
So that's not the entire committee, right?
No, sir.
So what happens if the applicant does not meet in the normal process when the committee meets as scheduled and required?
This is the first time it's happened while I've been here, but generally if there's a question that's not answered, the matter will not go before the board until all those questions have been satisfied, answered, and to the satisfaction of staff.
Right, and I got an administrative assistant, bless her heart, she faxed that to me this evening at 3:43, and I was wondering what was the, all this about. Of course, I have to be fully prepared, and I'm not against this, but at the same time, are they meeting our requirements about the in-kind services? In other words, are the requests, are they able to have the insurance and doing all the volunteers, make sure the park is cleaned up?
The insurance was provided to me today.
When?
Today.
Okay, has the attorney looked at it?
I looked at it at the table, Vice Mayor.
Okay, let's go ahead, next thing.
And also, the sanitation director spent a good amount of time reviewing what has taken place in the park in previous events and adjusted the location of public services to make sure that the park will remain clean.
And one thing I want to say, and again, I'm not against this, I remember last year they had a Starkville Day, what this group here, and I know when I came from church from that Sunday morning, I think I called whoever I could get, the Miss Gandy, and it looked like a landfill over there.
Yes, sir, and that's the reason there was so much thought put into the consideration of this special event. And there will be sanitation crews there during the event and also the next day after the event to make sure that the park is left clean.
Right, and again, I'm just repeating this, make it clear that I'm not against this, but I just want to be consistent. I don't want anyone to leave this room tonight saying that the vice mayor opposes this, but what the vice mayor wants to happen, he wants to treat everybody consistent.
Yes.
I'm not going to treat anybody any different because of who you are when you come down to the table. These requestors need to get this information in on time. Otherwise, we do not need to consider it. And I hopefully that park gonna be clean Sunday morning, because when I go to early service, I'm gonna drive by there before I go to church 8 o'clock Sunday morning, staff, and I wanna make sure it's clean. And so that's why, these requestors have to get this information to this board in a timely manner. We talk about a lot of times about our attorney have to look at these whole harmless agreements. We cannot force our attorney to look at, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. I'm not fussing at you, Mr. Sanders. You're doing a great job. Thank you. But our attorney should not have to be forced to look at this at the table. We don't want him to reading these things so hurriedly, making a rush to judgment. But he's an excellent lawyer. He knows how to get that done. But at the same time, we're not going to put him under that pressure. So as an individual member of the board, hopefully that we can get it conveyed to these requestors that we want our deadlines adhered to, because we so far have had strict compliance, with our deadlines. But of course, hopefully everything will go well. I'm looking forward to a clean park. Do they have any volunteers that are going to help our sanitation department clean up?
They do.
How many volunteers they got?
That I'm not sure of.
Okay, but
Ashford is here to answer.
okay, that's fine. But hopefully, we'll have a number of people who will be volunteering. We have the in-kind service, that's from sanitation, police, that is.
Yes, sir.
The Starkville Electric Department.
Yes, sir. There will be no services from Starkville.
And are we getting into volunteers from the Park Commission?
Yes, sir.
Of course, I know that under our operation here, under state law, they have complete autonomy over the parks, and I was hoping that we, could get some in-kind service from them. But I'm not complaining, of course, with the late minute, that they may not have had the opportunity to plan and budget for that. But hopefully that this event, will grow. It'll be a great success. Everything will go very smoothly. What time this event is going to be out there on say what's the beginning and ending time?
I believe we'll have volunteers there at the beginning around 7 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, and there'll be,
And it'll end around 8 o'clock at night.
okay, 8 o'clock at night. So at 8 o'clock at night, the park the event is officially closed?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, but in the future, hopefully, I'm sure you did that, told the requestor, get this in on a timely manner. And we just want to make sure that we have some system, some process, so we as the city officials and the governing body will have everything that we need. Because I know when I got the packet on Friday and came out here, I got the packet, I did not see that. And I didn't learn about this until 3:43 this evening. And I had a million things going on at 3:43 this evening. So, but I appreciate it. Mr. Sanders, thank you for all your hard work. And hopefully this event will be a great success. It'll be good for the community. I fully support that. But all my comments and concerns are just about process, procedure, and we have to make commitment to meet with this special review committee, because that's the purpose of the committee, is to make sure everything is in place, that we as a board have the totality of the facts and the circumstances so we can make an informed decision. So, Mr. Sanders, thank you so much, and I wish everybody a great success with this. I want to thank those who are planning this, but hopefully next year we'll have better organization with the whole thing from those who are requesting relief from the board. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Further discussion? There is no motion pending.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Walker to approve of a special event request by the People of Purpose for the Juneteenth celebration to be held in J.L. King Park with a parade in the area, with the approximate cost to the city being $1,475 in in-kind services as presented. Alderman Walker, is that your motion?
Yes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Perkins. Alderman Walker, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No.
Any discussion? Alderman Maynard.
City Attorney, did you have a chance to look at the insurance?
I looked at the insurance certificate and the indemnification provision, and they're both valid.
No further questions?
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. The next matter on the agenda is a request for approval of the claims docket.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Little to approve of the City of Starkville claims docket for all departments, including the Starkville Electric Department, as of June 13th, 2014, for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2014, as presented. Alderman Little, is that your motion?
Yes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Little, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
By a vote of 5 in favor with 1 against, this measure passes. That will conclude the open session portion of our agenda. You have matters for your potential consideration in executive session. Do I hear a motion to go into closed session to consider whether there is a need for executive session?
So moved.
Motion's been made by Alderman Maynard to go into closed session to determine whether there is a need for an executive session. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. I ask that everybody vacate the premises so the board can begin to have closed session deliberations. And without objection, I'm going to move the board into a brief recess. Any objection? None, we'll stand in a brief recess.